over a decade, Marvel Studios has reigned supreme as a studio that delivered not just the highest-grossing blockbusters and films of the year, but also some of the most entertaining and endearing. Now, I wouldn't argue that the MCU has churned out anything worth Best Picture, even the ones that have been nominated for such, Black Panther. But there is no doubt that despite the opinions of those who turn up their noses at Marvel as nothing more than cheap thrills, that Marvel Studios generally represents a higher quality film than the blockbusters churned out by the competition. After the payoff that was Endgame, however, Marvel seems to be struggling to find its way. Despite pushbacks from COVID and high expectations, Marvel's Phase 4 has been a success financially, still taking in more money than the competition, and fans are generally still invested. Their last release, Spider-Man No Way Home, was a massive hit, and audiences looked forward to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which Marvel was hyping as the next big film to connect much of what has already happened in Phase 4 to what was coming. Yet Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is here, and many are walking away feeling hollow. Yes, everything in the MCU is connected. The promise is still intact as Infinity War, Endgame, and now No Way Home get brief mentions, and WandaVision's plot has the biggest impact story-wise on the whole movie. In fact, many who may not have seen some of the Disney Plus series such as WandaVision, Loki, or What If may find many references in the film confusing. So yes, technically, it is all still connected. But is it really? Only WandaVision's plot has any relevance to Multiverse of Madness' story. And most of what occurs in Multiverse of Madness doesn't appear to build towards much of anything. Sure, we get small threads here or there, but never any real payoff. With Benedict Cumberbatch returning as Doctor Strange, Strange finds himself pitted up against Wanda, aka the Scarlet Witch, played again by Elizabeth Olsen. As Doctor Strange is forced to confront her or risk, well, actually, if he left her alone, she'd have killed exactly 2 people, and no one would have ever heard from her again. But hey, killing is wrong, so now hundreds will die standing in her way, and maybe she could be a threat to all of reality. We don't really know, we should just assume she is. Which is the film's problem, we are just expected to take everything at face value. More character-driven stories such as WandaVision, Loki, and Moon Knight have become very popular on Disney+, but Marvel's films are still being built as action-packed popcorn flicks, full of spectacles and jokes, but light on depth of character and emotion. Wanda's motivation in this film is built solely off of her series, again, fulfilling Feige's promise that it's all connected, but the same level of character depth is absent. And anyone who hasn't seen the show has no reason to believe her emotional turmoil. Wanda's pain should be believable regardless of whether anyone has seen WandaVision. Character depth isn't the same thing as plot. If someone doesn't understand the story because they didn't see a previous movie or series, one could argue this far into the MCU they should know better. But lack of emotion or depth has nothing to do with people not seeing prior material. That's just lazy writing and directing. Endgame has emotional payoff because of all the previous films we've seen, but it still takes time to show character emotions and let the characters and audiences mourn events. Endgame built off of previous films, Multiverse of Madness just falls back on them. Multiverse of Madness ends up being one massive spectacle with Easter eggs and fan service thrown in at every turn. It falls back on nostalgia and past films, but never builds anything worthwhile to move forward. It's one large placeholder that jumps from plot point to plot point, never letting the characters or audience catch a breath. Because if it ever slows down, you quickly realize just how empty the movie is. Now don't get me wrong, I have bashed the film plenty, but I don't hate it. Sam Raimi's visuals and cinematography stand out, with much of his macabre and horror skill set put to good use. Doctor Strange's comic books often could dive heavily into pulp horror tropes, something Raimi is a master of, and the pairing seemed like a natural fit. And true enough, there are plenty of set pieces that show off some more horror-themed visuals, and Raimi shows off just how powerful the Scarlet Witch can be. As a fan of the comics and the Lovecraftian side of Doctor Strange, it was fun to see these things. But again, they amounted to mere fan service, and things with rich lore from the comics, such as Wundagore Mountain, the Darkhold, and Chthon, are either name-dropped just to please comic fans, or act as nothing more than mere MacGuffins for the plot. The fun wears off fast, and with no major additions to the Marvel mythos, and no emotional payoff outside of weak attempts to piggyback off prior events, Multiverse of Madness just doesn't offer a lot to keep viewers invested. Those just looking for a fun Marvel flick will be delighted. Those looking to see Marvel take a step back and breathe depth back into the MCU will be sorely disappointed. I give Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness 2 out of 4 stars.